Man, it'd be so cool to have claws like Wolverine.
No, it wouldn't.
What do you mean? It'd be awesome.
If you had claws like Wolverine, you would cut yourself instantly.
No way. Look, I'll try it out with knives. I'll prove it to you.
Oh, here he is. How'd it go with the knives?
I don't want to talk about it.
Welcome back to Movie Punch, where we punch movies so you don't have to. Today we're looking at the much maligned X-Men Origins Wolverine, and we're asking, is it really that bad? Written by David Benioff and Skip Woods and directed by Gavin Hood, this is a movie I've gone back and forth with a little bit. I came to it late, and by the time I first watched it, it seems universally agreed that it was a terrible movie. But then I watched it and was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. Then I recently rewatched it, and it was a lot worse than I remembered. Still though, I do think there's some good stuff in here, and I kind of want to draw it out for those of you that have just completely written this movie off. I guess when some people see a glass half empty, I see it half full. Oh wait, no, this is completely empty. Oh, that's unfortunate. Let's punch it. Okay, I haven't even started yet, and my producer's already giving me notes. Why do you want me to be angry? Okay, yeah, I get it. Pasty nerd rages on internet does get views. And a Berserker rage would be on brand for Wolverine. I'll see what I can do. When I talked about iRobot, I spent a lot of time saying up why I thought the writers did the best they could under the circumstances, but here all of the story criticisms are completely valid. This is a movie that didn't need to exist. The movie is an origin story about the main character from 3 movies that spent a lot of time going over his origins. We know how he got his claws and roughly what happened to him, so we don't need any of this story. Apparently it was a studio executive that insisted upon it, so obviously the writers here were completely hamstrung from doing anything too interesting. You can't cut out the main parts of his origin story in a movie with this title, but you can't just repeat the exact same stuff you did in the other movies, so you have to try and cram interesting characters and storylines in where you can and hope for the best. That said, the opening of this movie is absolutely fantastic. 2 unstoppable mutants fighting their way through several wars is just awesome to watch. And all of the stuff with the kids and the bone claws I thought was pretty cool. By which I mean, that wasn't in the comics. I also like how they subverted the whole fridging thing with Silver Fox's character. It was a nice little twist that made the character a lot more interesting in what would otherwise have been a boring stereotype. Plus, the ending for that character is really well done. Look, would the movie be a lot better if we'd spent the whole thing before he got the adamantium? Probably, but apparently that wasn't an option. So we got some cool stuff, and speaking of things we were happy to have. Say what you want about this movie, but no one can accuse Hugh Jackman of not completely committing to the part. This movie almost works just due to the sheer amount of effort he's putting in. He clearly loves playing Wolverine, and despite the fact that we've seen him in so many movies as the character, it's still really great to watch him go at it here. I think he's even better here than he was in the original trilogy. He's willing this thing to work. And while I'm not going to defend the baffling choices they made with Deadpool, the rest of the supporting cast here are pretty strong. I think the opening scenes with the team are fun, and Liev Schreiber has an absolute blast chewing the scenery as Sabretooth. Terrible pun, stand by it. And Taylor Kitsch shows up and is given nothing to do, as is tradition. It's not every day you get to see a movie introduce a character, a fan favourite from the comics no less, and then immediately in the next scene discard his importance to the story.
2 years I rotting in that hole and I ain't never going.
When it starts, whatever the reason is that you're doing this, focus on that. Maybe it will help.
Trust me, I've been through worse.
No, you haven't.
Yeah, I know I'm not raging, but it's hard to get angry at the bad parts when the bad parts are this funny. I know, I'll try harder. Berserker rage! Another big issue with this movie is the way it looks, and I feel like that's down to 2 choices. The first is the visual effects. Up until this point, visual effects improved year to year, but then we reached a point where the studios realised they could do something good enough and save money, rather than to continue to push the envelope. Suddenly, audiences were subjected to subpar effects due to VFX artists being rushed, and as a result there are movies which are older that hold up much better. It's extremely noticeable in this movie because of Wolverine's claws. We'd had 3 movies of them looking realistic, and then suddenly Origins comes along and makes them look fake. I watched a behind-the-scenes clip with the director where he said that basically they didn't spend a lot of time on the claw effects because they'd already perfected them. And I'm thinking, yeah, that is what should have happened, but it didn't. You made them look worse. And one has to assume that that's because the studio cheapened out and the effects were rushed. But, you know, maybe the VFX artist just really dropped the ball. Okay, and with Wolverine's claws, you can just make them look the same as before, right? Yeah, no problem. We'll just do what we did in the other movies. Crap, does anyone remember what we did in the other movies? I knew we should have written it down. Combine visual effects with cinematography in a visual style that's very clean, and you get a movie that feels a lot more artificial and less grounded than the originals, which just makes for an uglier movie. Which makes me, furious. But it does increase the schlock value, so I'm torn. I've had to frame a lot of my positives in a certain context so far, but I do think there are some things here that genuinely work without any need for excuses. It mostly comes in the action department. I've already mentioned the opening, but I also feel like the scene with Wolverine on the bike versus a helicopter is well done and does a good job of showcasing his new claws. The climactic fight scene is also pretty great. A fight on top of a nuclear cooling tower is a unique visual, and the choreography as they're fighting a mutant who's teleporting back and forth is really well done. Plus, surprises and character beats keep coming as Deadpool's abilities keep getting revealed. And I also like that after Deadpool's head gets cut off, the laser beams keep going. It's a nice excuse for needless destruction. However, while I've done my best to defend this movie, there's no way around the fact that some of the choices made were confusing at best. Now, I'm not just going to sit here and take pot shots at the movie. Oh, Wendy is saying that's exactly what I should do. Okay, well, maybe just a couple. Why would you introduce Deadpool only to cover up his mouth? Why did this fire escape act like something out of a cartoon? Why is Will.i.am here? Why did Wolverine send Gambit away at the end when he could have literally explained everything that had just happened, foregoing the need for him to work out what they did to him? I can't get annoyed, much to Wendy's dismay, because I feel like I just get caught up with the stupid and go along for the ride. Every time the movie made a decision where I thought, why did they do that? The movie looked back at me and said, you thought that was dumb? Here, hold my beer. I think the worst thing you can be is a big dumb action movie that takes itself too seriously, boring the audience into the ground. X-Men Origins Wolverine is a very stupid movie, but it seems self-aware to at least remain entertaining. I mean, you can literally see Hugh Jackman reacting to the movie around him in real time.
You miss me?
So that's X-Men Origins Wolverine. Man, that title rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? So glad I had to say that a bunch of times. So is it really that bad? I don't think it's as awful as people make it out to be, but I do understand the hate for it. When you make a movie that doesn't need to exist, it's bound to feel cynical. And if you make that movie with a lot of issues, people are bound to turn against it. Honestly though, I feel like this movie is entertaining when it's good, but almost as entertaining when it's bad. And it holds up better than some other X-Men movies. But what do you think? Leave me a comment. Have you rewatched it recently? Did it hold up? Or have you always hated it? But if you don't leave a comment, yeah, it's not really working, the anger thing, is it? I'm sorry, Wendy, I'm just too British to get worked up over stuff. I think you just have to accept that I'm not an angry person. Huh. Says here another one of our videos got a copyright strike.